Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogeman, and I'm Jim Quist. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about more than just football on this episode. We've got more football coming up later in the week as well that we'll tell you a little bit more about as the program progresses. But first, Will and I are going to take a quick peek at the new ACC SEC Men's and Women's College Basketball Challenge, which is coming up in November. Will, any of these games that really stand out to you? I mean, there's a couple of ranked teams definitely going head to head that I think are going to be some great matchups, but there's a few other games in here too that are sort of lurking that grabbed my attention. Let's see if you're thinking along the same lines.
Well, it would help if I unmuted myself. That would do a lot of work.
And people are hoping that I mute myself. So yeah.
I mean, Wednesday's the big night. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on Tuesday. The highlights probably Miami at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are higher on Kentucky. They feel like a decent team this year. Obviously, a lot of people think Miami's the second best team in the ACC this season. I question that, wondering how much they're going to miss Isaiah Wong this year. I feel like he meant a lot to that team. Clemson, Alabama could be sneaky Tuesday night. I'm still skeptical on Clemson because obviously we know on the good days they could be really good, but on the bad days they can suffer multiple quad 4 losses. So there's a couple good games. Wednesday's kind of the big night because you got North Carolina, Tennessee. This is obviously Carolina's kind of getting back on, trying to get back on track potentially after a couple of down seasons, but we still need some proof as to whether or not Hubert Davis is a good coach. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Virginia versus Texas A&M is a sneaky good one. I see there's a lot of mixed reaction on the Who's this year just because there's a lot of newness to that roster.
Mm-hmm.
We know Texas A&M is a pretty good program. Buzz Williams, has done some good things there since taking over. So, they get to face Buzz again. Duke Arkansas is an interesting matchup as well. Obviously Duke will probably be ranked top 5, maybe probably top 3, to be honest with you. Arkansas, they should be pretty good. I don't think they're going to be. They're not going to. They'll probably be like in the top 15, top 20 this year. Those are the real big ones on the men's side.
Yeah, there's two games that intrigue me, one on each night. LSU at Syracuse. I think both of those teams have got a lot of playability about themselves, and I want to see where they stand at this point in the season, because I think this is a good challenge for both of them and will tell us a little bit more about where they may be going and what potential they have. That's the first game. The second one is Florida at Wake Forest. Actually, there's 3 because I also was looking at Virginia Tech and Auburn. But Florida at Wake Forest and Virginia Tech at Auburn are those 2 other games that I thought, these are going to be worth taking a look at. It's early season basketball. It's always fun when you have conference to conference competition. Used to be the Big Ten. Now it's the SEC, and there's a lot of good basketball in the SEC now. And the ACC has had their down years the last few years. So we'll see if there's some parity involved here. Let's go over to the women's side. This always intrigues me because I love women's basketball, and man, the ACC is again just full of potential here. It's crazy how good the women's basketball has become in the ACC.
Mm-hmm, definitely, and there's a couple real big matchups on Wednesday night to kick it off, and you've got Notre Dame taking on Tennessee. That game should be good. We know Notre Dame is back to its usual self, have a lot of talent again this year. Tennessee, after a couple of rough years post Pat Summit, have really rebounded. They're supposed to be really good this year. And then Louisville, Ole Miss, that's another big one. Louisville obviously has been one of the best teams in the league over the last few years. Ole Miss looks like a team that should be really, really good again this year. That should be a couple of great matchups on Wednesday. Thursday's got some pretty good ones. Duke obviously is a team that we know has been one of the best defensive teams over the last couple of years, taking on Georgia. South Carolina taking on North Carolina. That should be a fun matchup. We always love watching Dawn Staley do her thing on the sidelines. And obviously the headliner is Virginia Tech LSU. LSU, your defending national champion, taking on Virginia Tech, who made his first Final Four in history this last season. I think they still do return a decent amount of talent from that team. I know they do lose a couple players, but I don't see why Virginia Tech can't compete for the league again this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One game that intrigues me that I really want to watch, and it's mainly because I want to see, and I will see them play sooner, but Missouri at Virginia. I want to see how the Virginia women perform this season.
That's a good point, Jim. That was another one I was kind of going to bring up as a sneaky one, because I'm starting to get a lot of hype on Virginia in terms of getting back to potentially the tournament this year. Coach Mox has done a really good job of recruiting, retooling that roster. They should be healthy again. I mean, they were kind of ravaged by injuries at the end of the season, but I think there's some big things in store in Charlottesville on the women's side this year.
I hope so. It's been a while since they have been in that position, and they have quite a bit of talent and more coming in, and a good solid coach. Hey, one of the things that we're working on, and we hope that this can come to fruition. We're looking at having Dan Bonner come on and talk to us about basketball before November. I want to get him in October, and hopefully we do. And Dan has a lot of insight, not only into men's basketball, but obviously into women's basketball as well. So it will afford us an opportunity to ask him his thoughts on both sides of hoops as they get going or are about ready to go. Again, we'll let you know. That's a couple of weeks off yet before that can be locked in. But that's something that we're shooting for, and it's Dan is a great guy. He's been on the show before several times, and he just has a great feel for basketball. So we're looking forward to that. Let's get into football, Will, because there's a lot of it this past weekend. Not so much coming up this week because we've got a lot of teams that are off. But let's start out with this first game, which, aside from some frustrations on the part of the performance of Virginia, the coaching in some ways, but also some, just inexperience. NC State 24, UVA 21. That score should not have been that close, to be honest with you. If NC State was playing the way they should be, it just tells me an awful lot about NC State, which has been a worrisome thing. We've made comments and alluded to it before. We've written about it on our website about how the Pack gets off to this wonderful start, and it's just like the air goes out of the balloon. And now UVA, we knew they were going to start out tough, and they've got a lot of work to do. It's going to take some time. It's not going to happen this year, but it's tougher for you being a fan than it is for me, because I'm looking at it from that both sidesism type of thing. I'm seeing progression on the part of UVA. Some frustrating, stupid stuff. Sure. I mean, that's part of building a team.
Yeah. Like I said, there were definitely some good things about about what I saw from Virginia on Friday night. Obviously, I saw some things from NC State that I liked. Still think they have some work to do offensively. I do like the receiver Concepcion. He looks like a future star for them. I think he's going to do really, really well in this offense once they start getting more into it here in the coming years. I think as long as he's sixth round, I think he's going to be a real factor for this offense. But this was Brennan Armstrong returning back to Charlottesville for the first time. He just looked a little off. I'll be honest with you. I mean, he completed only 50% of his passes through a pick. It was Virginia's first interception of the season. He did. I mean, he ran the ball well. That didn't surprise me because Virginia's run defense has not been very good this year. They're towards the bottom of the league in that department. They're also towards the bottom of the league in passing defense too. But I had a feeling. I was actually a little surprised Armstrong didn't run more in this game. They ended up being a pretty even split in terms of the run pass ratio. I think they ran the ball a little bit more, which you don't normally see from a Robert and I offense. But I think they also knew coming in that this is what they were going to need to do to win. But yeah, a lot of a lot of good stuff from Virginia. Calandria started this game, threw a couple of picks in the fourth quarter, and there were definitely those freshman plays where you think you see something and that's not you can get away with it in high school, but you can't get away with it in college, basically. But he brings a certain level of swagger and excitement that I've not seen from Virginia football in a few years, to be honest with you. I mean, we're going back a couple of years here, but I mean, he's not Brennan Armstrong. He's not going to run like him, but there's a certain level of something with him. He just IDGAF about certain things in the game, which is good and bad. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Discipline was a big issue here, obviously, with the personal foul, especially on the touchdown that made the 2-point conversion go back to 15 yards. What was it, from like the 2 to the 17 or whatever? I forget where, but yeah, that's an issue. And I mean, Calandria got called for the personal foul after the touchdown with the helmet, but if you go back and look at the replay, you can clearly see it was kind of knocked off him on that 2-point conversion. So I think the refs got that one wrong, but it doesn't matter because I still think State would have driven down and likely scored anyway, so it wouldn't have made a factor. But I think we're seeing a lot about this Virginia offense that gives you some hope. It's nothing we expected from this offense, to be honest. Thing of it is the staff's got a question on their hands. Tony Muskett's going to be healthy again real soon, maybe as soon as this week. But how do you sit Calandria given the level of excitement he has brought to this team? I have not, I listened to some college football podcasts, and in no way would I've ever heard, Virginia be talked about in the same sentence or as fun. Like that. I don't know how you can send him back to the bench after this.
It's not that difficult to do, to be blunt. I mean, he's a starting quarterback. You bring him back in, you see how he performs. If he can deliver the type of level of performance and excitement that a backup is, then he retains that starting position. But if he can't, then you move on. I mean, that's how it works, and we'll see. This is a year that you can afford to do that and not worry too much about. I mean, nobody likes to lose, but I mean, anyway, I'll leave that there. Speaking of losing, Hokie fans, this is a frustrating situation to be in. And I certainly feel for you, but your team, again, we talked about this last week, Will, about how this team has all kinds of injuries, and they're rebuilding, and it's just Marshall. Even though I think you expressed some, that maybe Marshall wasn't all that, whatever, but I can tell you that Marshall at home is a team to be dealt with, even when they absolutely suck, because it's just something about that crowd that pumps people up. And Marshall has been building a program. This doesn't surprise me with a weakened Virginia Tech that Marshall came out with this win. But again, there's also some aspects of this game that if you're a Hokies fan, you got to throw the bad away and start looking for the good, and look at the things that are there that are going to take you to that next level, because that's just the way it's got to be. It's not going to, at a snap of a finger, be a great football team. It's just not. And this is one of these situations where, you're 0-3, and it is what it is. And it's going to be a tough season. It's just going to be tough. But that doesn't mean it's going to remain that way. So have some faith. Have a little bit of faith.
Yeah, it's
just a wee bit.
Just a wee bit. You've gotta have faith. Anyways. So it's really, really funny how both Virginia and Virginia Tech are alike. I mean, they're that Spider-Man meme where they're looking at pointing at each other like this.
Right.
That they are, because they are both having rough seasons, both having success with a backup quarterback, and you could argue that backup quarterback should be the starter going forward. This is no different than with Tech. Aaron Jones looks like he should be the guy. 160 yards for the air, a decent game. He's a good runner. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns at 75 yards. And Bashan Tootin, he had over 100 total yards. He didn't touch the ball a lot, but he was very effective when he did get touches. It's just they allowed 214 yards on the ground to Marshall. That's something you would not expect from a Virginia Tech defense. And yeah, like I said, they're banged up, but it really shows, they don't have a lot of depth either. So it's probably going to be a long season in Blacksburg too. And it's, just like you say, and we know they're recruiting fairly well. They should be restocking the reserves here in the coming years. But I don't know if we're ever going to get, if at least anytime soon, they're going to get back to being a consistent bowl team. It's probably going to take a little time.
All right. So just so that everybody understands something here, Will is a Minnesota fan, Vikings fan. And, they've been getting bruised, but he's got absolutely nothing on me, because I'm a Chicago Bears fan. And the amount of suck that you have to go through to be a Bears fan, especially right now, I think both Will and I can relate to UVA and Virginia Tech. It's just you don't have it nearly as bad as we do. Okay, sorry, but we get it. We understand, and you just have to have some patience.
Try being a fan of Minnesota sports. It's not for the weak of heart.
It's just, Chicago's the same way. It's like a black hole,
It's like, the Twins clinched the division on Friday night, but we have this fatalistic view of, are they going to win a game in the playoffs, since it hasn't happened in 19 years?
Wow. Well, I hope they pull off something.
I would just be happy to get one win.
That would be good. If that's all that you want, then we'll give you one win. So just one.
More would be great, but let's just start with one.
That's all you're going to get. You ask for one. That's all you're going to get. All right. Syracuse continues to roll and looking pretty solid here. Folks, Syracuse, let me just tell you that this team is 4-0. 29-16 win over Army. Now, an Army can be quite a competitor and tough to deal with at times, even with the best teams out there. They just have a way of playing some romp 'em, stop 'em football and making it difficult. Syracuse did not do too bad here.
It was a story of two halves, really. Second, look at the second half. Syracuse outscored Army 26-6. Had 326 total yards to Army's 121, 140 yards on the ground to -4 for Army. And just, Syracuse got out of the gate sluggishly, gave up a couple long touchdown drives in the beginning, or gave up a couple long drives, I should say. They didn't give up only gave up one touchdown in the first half, but it was, it was kind of taking the other team's best punch and getting up and getting back into the fight, and obviously ultimately winning. However, let me dump a little bit of water on this, because
Okay. Cold water.
let me get into my Paul Feinbaum
Oh,
Poller voice here.
help.
They ain't played nobody.
Okay.
I mean, it's true. I mean, as much as I like what they're doing, we have to be honest with ourselves that they still haven't played, anybody or like
Okay.
a console. I mean, Colgate, okay, FCS school,
Yep.
Western Michigan, okay, yeah, good school. They've, you're a MAC school, yeah. They gave up 41 points to Iowa. If you give up 41 points to Iowa, that tells you just where you're at as a program. Okay, Purdue is down this year, new coach. They've got some issues, and then obviously Army. This is the best win of them all, because Army's the only one that's at 500. You always like to say, Jim, you have a little Missouri thing, a show me.
Right. That's right.
That's this week.
Yep.
Show me.
Yeah. And it will be a show me situation. We'll get into that in just a few moments. And speaking of showing me, we found out who is the top dog in the ACC, at least this week. Florida State came out with a 31-24 overtime win in Death Valley, defeating Clemson, and it showed us a lot about what each team was all about. To be honest, I mean, I saw the strengths and I saw the weaknesses, and there's a lot of stuff that both of those teams need to work on.
Yeah, this, in terms of just the competitive aspect of this game, it lived up to the hype.
Yeah,
It was close throughout. Yeah, there were some issues. Florida State didn't run the ball very well, but Jordan Travis, he got hurt last week. In the not this week, but the game before, it clearly affected him here because he didn't really run. He wasn't a factor on the ground. I think this, we'll get into, more of it. I think this bye week comes at the perfect time for him to kind of start resting. I think it's his shoulders is his injury. This gets that opportunity to, rest it up. But he's still good in the passing game. 289, 2 touchdowns. They just, like, as a whole, Florida State couldn't run the ball. Average 1.1 yards per carry. Kate Klubnik, decent game. They ran the ball fairly well. Did Clemson. It's just little bit of questionable play selection in overtime. It's kind of, it was kind of weird. It was a nice run on second down, but then a weird the pass play on third down. I believe there was some miscommunication on what they were supposed to run. I think they ended up kind of doing RPO, but I think they were supposed to run it, and they ended up throwing it. And it was incomplete, and then another incompletion on fourth down. It was a good defensive play too, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Now Clemson's 2-2. Still though, think if you're a Clemson fan, you come out of this thinking, okay, we lost by 7, or we took arguably the best team in the league to overtime. Yeah, we're down right now, but we could very easily see these guys again in a couple of months. Obviously there's going to be they're going to make some changes. They got to fix some things. There are some things to fix, as you well know, Jim. But unless North Carolina, steps up, who knows? Maybe Miami's got it figured out too. Very well, we could be seeing these two meet again in a couple months.
One more loss, that's it.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, and hey, maybe to rewind a little bit, Syracuse shows us.
True. That
And all of this is moot.
Yep. And like I said, one more loss in conference for Clemson, barring a miracle. That's all she wrote for championship time. But bowl games are there. Miami and Duke both coming out with 41-7 wins. Miami over Temple and Duke over UConn. Not going to go through those. Miami and Duke both looking good and against teams that are, they are what they are. Louisville came out with a pretty solid performance, and Boston College, based upon what we've seen so far, delivered somewhat of a counterpunch. But Louisville's starting to and that was one of the teams that we said, show me, at the beginning of the year, because everybody was talking smack. Okay. It was like, oh boy, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay, sure. But show me. Now you still have some games that you need to deliver on, but pulling off a 56-28 win shows us that you have the potential to be very competitive. Now, are you in the top tier of the conference? No. But the mid-tier this season is far stronger than I've seen in quite a while, Will. So
no doubt.
What do you think of that win?
That was a pretty impressive beatdown. I'm not going to lie. This game was pretty much over from the beginning. When you're looking at just how Louisville dominated in this game, put up 585 yards of offense, 42 points in the first quarter, or in the first half. Could have hit 60 if they really wanted to, but they got down to the BC 3-yard line on the final play of the game and could have gotten in for 60, but they got down, but they stopped short or whatever, and didn't go for the 60, which, good sportsmanship on you, coach. But yeah, Jack Lumber 388 yards, 5 touchdown passes. Wow, that's pretty impressive. On 18-21 too. That shows a lot. Let me ask you this: Is there a more? I'm going to be hard pressed to find another player better than this, but right now, is Jawar Jordan the best player in the ACC in terms of what he's accomplished to this point? I mean, he had another huge game here. He had 3 total touchdowns. He had a 75-yard TD catch, 134 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, averaging 7 yards a carry. He leads the league in rushing. I would venture he might be if you're looking at it at the quarter poll, he's probably player of the year right now. I mean, we got a long ways to go still, but he's been probably the most impressive player in the league so far this year.
One of the things that you'll find among a lot of the ACC media is that there are certain teams that don't get talked about a lot, and certain players from teams that don't get talked about a lot. And so when you have a player like this, they tend not to be on the radar. Part of this has to do with, people that are covering other schools aren't really paying attention. And yeah, I get that. I mean, there's only so much you can do. But this is an example of, I think you hit something on the head here, Will, is that here you have a player who has, it's not just the stats. I mean, here's what I would encourage you to do. If you're listening or watching right now, go to to YouTube and pull up some video and watch a couple of weeks worth of action, and then make your decision. But if it continues down this path, yeah, that's I mean, that's an amazing performance so far.
Yeah, it
So
is. Number one, Louisville's number one in rushing, number one in passing, number one in total offense right now, averaging 542 yards per game.
it's crazy. I mean, yeah, it really is. Um, all right. We can certainly talk about that performance and where that. Here's the thing. I want to look at a couple more games with Louisville. I'm not. It's not that I'm not sold on the team. I just want to. I got that show me thing going on here. I want to see it. I want to see some more. I want to see consistency. And that's not me denying Louisville by any stretch of the imagination. It's being realistic. It's saying, look, I've seen what was there before and how it performed, but now we're talking about now.
You're
And
looking at now.
yeah, it's what have you done for me now? And so that's why people are reluctant to sort of get in there and say, okay, yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah, and I agree with what you were saying. I totally get where you're coming from. With the show me aspect, okay, the competition hasn't been the best. Georgia Tech, okay, I think they're a little bit better than we expected, but still, they might be a borderline bowl team at best. Murray State, FCS, or Boston College, like say Boston College, probably not making a bowl this year. Indiana, too early to tell. I think they got some pieces. I think they're 2-2, so maybe if they in the Big Ten, maybe they can get a couple upsets. They have NC State Friday night. Okay, that should be a good game in
Mhm.
Raleigh. Still would lean Louisville there. It's the game after that, home to Notre Dame, October 7th, is sort of that your show me game.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Here's a team that I think has been coming along, and we pointed out on a story that we had on the website, talked about this is a team that you better watch out. They're going to sneak up on somebody and bite them. Well, this is exactly what happened. And I think it's going to be more and more the case because this team is a lot better than what we think they are. Georgia Tech 30, Wake Forest 16. I don't think that's any small accomplishment whatsoever because Wake Forest is a team that can just plow you under offensively. Defensively, they're better, but the fact that they allowed 30 points to be put up on them by Georgia Tech, let's forget for a minute about what Georgia Tech was. They are showing us now who they are. And if they come out and perform like this over the next couple of weeks, you better be prepared for them because I think they're coming after everybody. They want wins and they're going to sneak one in on some people that are going to be surprised. This surprised the crap out of me.
Yeah, we were talking about this on Saturday night. I didn't get to watch this game. I was actually at a Minnesota United soccer game in a pouring rain, which was so much fun. But I was impressed that just Georgia Tech just kind of dominated throughout the game. It wasn't just, they pull in. They were up, 20-3 at halftime. It just looked really, really good in this game.
They were dominating.
Yeah, and 5 turnovers by Wake. Obviously, Mitch Griffiths threw 3 picks in this game. One was kind of a deep ball that was intercepted in the game, just trying to make something happen to try to get him close. But still, Griffiths didn't look great in this game. Where obviously I do have concerns with this Georgia Tech defense is they gave up 224 yards on the ground to this team. They're currently last in terms of rushing in the league, rushing defense. That is something to be concerned about going forward. Yes, they're playing, they're defending the pass pretty well and obviously getting a lot of good contributions offensively. Haynes King did well in this game, threw a couple touchdowns, had 53 yards on the ground. This was one of those games where if you think Georgia Tech is going to go to a bowl this year, you need to kind of pull off a couple of games that you thought you weren't going to maybe win. And this was one of them. And now you think the trajectory for the Yellow Jackets is a little bit higher to where you look at the schedule, maybe they can make a bowl this year. And that's going to be a pretty impressive improvement and a pretty good showing by this team, and it would prove why Brinke was the right man for the job.
Yep. North Carolina over Pitt, 41-24, the final score, Will. And Pitt is, I just keep thinking to myself, what's going on with this team this year? Nobody can figure it out.
It wasn't so much Phil Jakovic this week. I mean, he actually threw the ball decently, but he didn't throw it to the other team. It was the backup, Vayu, who came in and threw a couple of picks. But yeah, this is very concerning. They were not really able, like after getting up a little bit in the second quarter, Carolina came back and really put up 34 or 41 points in the second and third quarters. Really made a big difference in this game. And the funny thing is Carolina didn't run the ball that well, averaged 2 yards a carry. Drake made 296, just very efficient, passing game. It wasn't like an eye-popping game, but he just continues to show why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He did what he needed to do. Like I said, threw a touchdown pass, just continue to be efficient, move things along. Defense, I mean, he did have a little bit of a tough day, getting around. I mean, they did sack him 5 times. That is one thing to take away from this, but even still, he obviously wasn't fazed by it. He still did really well.
ACC standings, Florida State now at the top of the pile with a 2-0 and 4-0 record. Louisville is at 2-0 and 4-0. Duke 1-0, 4-0. NC State next 1-0 and 3-1. Georgia Tech 1-1 and 2-2. Then we have Miami with no wins or losses in the conference, and they're 4-0. Syracuse, no wins and losses in the conference. They're 4-0. Virginia Tech, no wins or losses in the conference. They're 1-3 overall. Wake Forest has 1 loss now in the conference. They're 3-1. Pitt, 1 loss in the conference, 1-3. I never would have. I cannot. When I first wrote that down, I thought to myself, this is unbelievable. Pitt is at 1-3. So, wow. Okay. Virginia 0-1 in the conference with a 0-4 record. Clemson, amazingly enough, and this is the way the standings are set up, Clemson is at 0-2. In the conference, they're 2-2 overall. And Boston College is 0-2 in the conference. They're 1-3 overall. Who would have ever thought that Clemson would be down at the bottom of the standings or next to the bottom of the standings this season or for any, the recent seasons? So,
Yeah, Pitt 1-3 and Clemson 2-2 was something we did not anticipate at the beginning of the season, and shows you sometimes you just don't. As much as you try to think, how things are going to go, you don't.
They don't go that way. Top 25s, USA Today. Number 1 is Georgia. 2 is Michigan. At number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Florida State. Number 5, Texas. Number 13, Notre Dame. 15, North Carolina. 16, Duke. Number 18 is Miami. In the receiving votes category, they've got Louisville at 32, Clemson 33, Syracuse at 34. Meanwhile, the reactionary voting of the AP, we've got those first 4 weeks out of the way now. Number 1, Georgia. 2, Michigan. Number 3, they've got Texas. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, FSU. So you Knowles fans can just rip the AP writers a new one for that one. Notre Dame is at 11, 15, UNC, Duke at 17, Miami 18. You know, the thing that gets me every time I see the AP numbers when it comes down to basically anything to do with the ACC, they almost they emulate each other. It's like, well, we're not going to put any thought into this. We're just going to write down the same thing the coaches put down. That's what it feels like, folks. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's only a couple of notches here this week that's a little different, like Duke 16 and 17. Over in the receiving votes category of AP, Louisville is at 29, Syracuse at 34. They've got Clemson at 37. Wowza. All right, let's talk about what's coming up because it's not a whole lot. But first, before we get into that schedule, let me just run this down. The AVCA Top 25 Volleyball Poll, number 5, it's Louisville. Number 8, Pitt. And number 11, Georgia Tech. And Duke comes in at 32, receiving votes category. The ACC men's basketball and women's basketball schedules will be released on Tuesday, the 26th on the ACC network. It starts at 7 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock for the men. And if you want to watch that, that's where you'll find it. That's why you should have the ACC network. Hey, the college football news folks have got some bowl projections. Will, it's so early. Military Bowl, they've got Pitt versus Memphis. Duke's Mayo, it's Georgia Tech versus Rutgers. The Holiday Bowl, Duke is taking on Utah. Did I say? Yeah, okay. Wasabi Fenway Bowl, Syracuse versus Tulane. The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe is going to have NC State versus Illinois. Pop-Tarts Bowl, Wake Forest versus Kansas. Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, Miami versus Texas, or Tennessee. Sorry. Wow, I got all excited there for a second. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, Louisville takes on Washington State, in the ReliaQuest Bowl, Clemson and Florida. Yeah, that's that's another surprise. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up. Not a whole lot of games coming up this week. It's week 5, and we start out Friday. You had previewed this briefly, Louisville at NC State. Just your thoughts. Who's going to win?
Yeah, I like Louisville. I think they're a slight favorite in this one on the road. I'm kind of banking on the offense continuing to do what they've been doing. I'm a little down on NC State right now. I'm concerned about what happened last week against Virginia. Really, just the first quarter of the season, they just haven't been what I thought they'd be. So,
Flat.
Haven't given all that. They've been a little flat. So I like Louisville here.
Virginia at Boston College on Saturday.
Well, this is the ultimate toss-up game. I think the line I have right in front of me right now is BC -3, and they basically say the home team gets a 3-point advantage. So this basically says this is a toss-up game. Here's my thing with this. We don't know who the starter for Virginia is going to be. I'm hoping it's Calandria. I think the thing that makes it interesting for me is Castellanos versus this Virginia defense. If they can stop Castellanos at all, I think Virginia can win this game. If Castellanos runs for, he has a pretty successful day, I think he's capable of that, then BC wins.
50-50. All right. Clemson at Syracuse. Show me time.
It really is. Show me. Like, I think Clemson looks like, or not Clemson, Syracuse looks like a good team, but like I said, they haven't played anybody, and this is their first real opportunity. How does Clemson rebound after a tough loss? There could easily be a letdown factor here.
Yeah, Syracuse is a tough home spot for Clemson.
Yep. And they've had their issues there over the years. Just based on talent, Clemson should win, but not every instance of talent went out.
Notre Dame at Duke. We're going to, by the way, I mentioned earlier that we're going to be talking about this game. Connor O'Neill is going to join us a little later this week. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame at Duke game in detail. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This is the first time for College Game Day down at Durham, which will be a fun little thing. Obviously, a huge opportunity for the Blue Devils to show out on the national stage like this. I mean, it'll still be another show full of Deion Sanders talk, but the fact that College Game Day is coming down there, I think it's a boom for this program. It's gonna be a real test, though. I think more really is Riley Leonard's first really its stiffest competition so far. He's been phenomenal so far, but this is a really tough Notre Dame defense. I think there's a chance that this defense can give them fits. I actually could see this being kind of a low scoring game, to be honest with you. I think both defenses could show out in this game.
interesting. Now, if we've got any Swifty fans out there, maybe you can get Taylor to show up for this game and distract us from prime time. Because I'd much rather hear, experience Taylor Swift any day. Next game is Bowling Green at Georgia Tech. This should be a win for Georgia Tech. This is a good time for them to get on a roll. So
Yeah, definitely. They're a 3 touchdown favorite against Bowling Green. They're obviously building a lot of momentum with this impressive win over Wake Forest, and I don't see why they can't continue that this week.
And our final game, Pitt at Virginia Tech. Got a coin?
Not on me, but that's basically how I it's interesting. The weeks ago when we were previewing the season, okay, Pitt should have no problem going into Blacksburg and beating Virginia Tech. Here we are recording this on the night of September 25th. This is a winnable game for Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
It feels weird to say. Like, I feel like Pitt's the better team, but I also haven't seen enough from them to believe that they are. Given it's Blacksburg, and this game is in Blacksburg. I could, if we go late Saturday night and you tell me Virginia Tech wins this game, I wouldn't be shocked with the way Pitt's been playing lately.
That may be a game that being that I have enough connections to watch all of the other stuff, I might actually end up at that game. I need to see it. I need a show me moment. So open this week is Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, and Wake Forest, and I think all of them need a nice little break to get healthy, wealthy, wise, and get things back in in the groove. So that is a look at ACC football and a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to the basketball starting up. And like I said, coming up a little later this week, we're going to be talking with Connor O'Neill about Duke and Notre Dame. We'll be having Evan join us to talk about NC State from Red White podcast. That's coming up in, I think a couple weeks. And then, of course, working on Dan Bonner to be our guest to talk about basketball. There's among other folks that we're having that will be joining us as we get into like a conglomeration of all of the sports that are going on across the Atlantic Coast Conference. One of the things that we're going to be doing, we've been making connections with people at Stanford, at Cal Berkeley, and SMU. And we plan on having some of the people that cover those teams join us and talk to us a little bit about their thoughts and their reactions to their teams becoming a part of the Atlantic Coast Conference, what that means to the fans, what it means to the schools, and what it means to them as well. because that's challenging not only for everybody else, but it's also for the people who are covering it. So looking forward to doing that. That's good. You're going to be seeing a lot more of that coming up. I encourage you to subscribe and to like us on YouTube. Yes. And make sure that you find your favorite podcast platform. Make sure that you subscribe to us there. And while you're at it, make sure you find a platform or go to our website at accnation.net to listen to ACC Nation Radio 24/7. It's all here, all for you. And until next time, cheers.
School.